Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Jeannie, thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. I know it's early for you, and I appreciate you being here with me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So, dynamism. I can't even say it correctly.
Dynamism.
There you go. So it's dynamic, it's amazing, it's superb, but it's leadership, right? And that is also the name of your website, right?
Yes.
I love it. What is that exactly? I know I kind of said it quickly, but I want you to go a little deeper, and then we're going to go even deeper into who Jeannie is.
So dynamism leadership. I started my business in 2005 under HRRX. And 2 years ago, I decided to rebrand under Dynamism Leadership. So my business has been a human resources consulting and leadership development firm since 2005. And Dynamism Leadership is all about how a leader shows up in the work world and in their personal life to make the difference in themselves and others. So we have a variety of different programs.
Very cool. Very cool. So, one thing that we all know that not everybody is a dynamic leader. They need to become it, right? When you realized your potential, your strengths, and your weaknesses, because we all have them, right? We're not just strong 1,000%. We do have some weaknesses. We have certain things about us. What would you say? Let's go back to your childhood. I really want to go deeper. Who motivated you? At what age would you say 6, 7, 8, 10 that you saw as like, wow, that's pretty cool, or something, a moment in time, even when you were later on in your years, maybe as a teenager? Who do you think really, if you look back, that really stands out for you?
So that's a really great question. And once you asked the question, I started thinking of the variety of people in my life who impacted me.
Right.
And I know that a lot of individuals have more than one person if they stop and think about it. Or during that time of growth, if you're saying like 6 and 7 years old, even then, if you stop and realize that that others are trying to show you something that you might not see in yourself yet,
right,
follow that. And so let me tell you, since you asked my personal question, so my mom was always an amazing role model for me. Now, my mother she worked hard. She had 6 kids. She had 3 different marriages. I was the youngest of 6 kids. And she didn't have it that easy. But one thing she did is she had the right mindset to continue to push forward with all the challenges that she had in her life. So she's my number one role model. She ended up going to college when I went to college. And keep in mind, I just said I was the youngest of 6. So she and I went to junior college together. And she got a degree and ended up being a teacher, which was fantastic at the LA City Unified School District. So my mom was there, but also for me, and back up too, my mom would always tell me, you can be anything you set your mind to. You can be you can do anything. Like there isn't something that you should feel like you're not strong enough for mentally or physically. Like you can figure out a way to do it. And so she planted that seed and continually watered it for
Nice.
me, I think my entire life. And I just lost her last February.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. That was one of the hardest things because of the way that the relationship that she and I had, and the wise advice she gave me year after year after year. But looking back, so again, I mentioned youngest of 6, not my mom was a teacher. We all know, sadly, teachers don't make enough money. They don't make the money that they deserve. And
Agree 1,000%.
yeah, they deserve triple, if not quadruple what their earnings are.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom couldn't promise me a college education because she couldn't pay for it. Little did we, and she also wasn't one to take out credit. So the loan system, the student loan system, wasn't even an option for her because that's not how she lived. She lived cash gal, right?
Right.
So I graduate high school and all my friends are running off to universities, and I was going to have to get a full-time job because how am I going to live? How are we going to do it? I can't go to school. So quickly, a couple weeks into my full-time job, everyone who worked there was like, this is an internship for you, right? And I'm like, no, this is my job. And they're like, but you're going to school at the end of summer. I'm like, no, probably not. And so I'm mentioning the story because there are people who saw potential in me, and they were like, they didn't even know me at the end of, the beginning of summer.
Wow.
And in a short period of time, they're saying, oh, you don't want to shortchange yourself and not have a college degree. You don't want to be excluded from something. And I remember my mom telling me similar. And I share this because I stopped and listened to them. But they were pretty relentless. Every day they're bringing in applications. They're bringing in every day. And this was like the head of marketing, the head of sales, the office manager. And they just kept saying, no, we see this. And I was, I could have ignored it and said, no, this is my job. Leave me alone. But instead I'm like, what's the universe really trying to tell me here through these people? And so I ended up signing up at the junior college for them. And then that's when my mom went to school with me too. And then the friends that I made ended up moving to San Diego, and it was almost like the same thing there. You have to go finish your undergrad here at San Diego State. And I go, do I really? Because and I'm like, okay. So, because I wouldn't take no for an answer. 2 of my friends were, again, relentless, and they got me student loans and all the applications I needed. And so I finished my undergrad. And then 7 years later, I decided I was going to go to school on my terms. I really wanted to get a master's degree.
Nice.
And my company that I worked for believed in me enough to pay for it up front, which was super. I was honored.
Wow.
And anyway, there were a handful of people, and I see their faces at the office that I went to, fresh out of high school, brand new job, and they just wouldn't let the idea of me going to college go. So they're like, you need to do it. And so I look back and I thank them. The college graduation, I invited them to. My wedding, I invited them to because they were family. They were family. And they pushed me in a way that I didn't know that was even an option for me.
It's incredible when you have people believe in you and you didn't even believe in you as much.
I didn't even know it was an option.
Yeah.
So I didn't know to believe in that for me because I didn't think it was an option. And that's interesting because you said, let's go back to 6 and 7 years old. And that's exactly what happens with individuals is they think that life that they're living or the situation that they're in, that's kind of their limit. And that's not the case.
Right.
As we get older, I've coached a lot of people where I say, how true is that? What is that? Does that really exist now? You're 35, 45. Yes. Is that really, is it just a limiting belief? And in most cases it is. It's just because we don't know what we don't know.
Mm-hmm. So you thought you were there as your full-time job.
Yeah.
And they talked you out of it.
They talked me out of it. They kept saying, you have to go to school. You have to, because you don't want to be excluded later for not having that college education.
Mhm.
And then, of course, my
Absolutely.
mom was like, yes, this is fantastic, but I couldn't offer it to you because I couldn't pay for it up front.
Mm.
And a lot of my friends' parents obviously had the money to do that. We just didn't. And I look back at some of my friends' parents, and I'm really good friends with one of my friend's mothers on Facebook. And so I call her my second mom.
Mm.
And so I admired their home. Their house was like, just to me, was like amazing. A pool, it was like a resort. It was so
Right, right.
pretty. And I always thought, there was in the back of my head, I need to create a life to get things like that if that's what I want. Like, I don't want to. So every time somebody planted that seed, for example, you don't want to be excluded for not having a degree. And
Mhm.
I thought, yeah, because I want to get to having a house like that. And I
Right.
don't always think, I don't like, material things aren't what really makes us happy inside. But it's like I wanted to have something nice like that, really
Mm.
nice like that.
Yeah.
And so I just kept saying, well, that's my driving force. And I believe that people have to have a goal in mind, and whatever it may be,
Yeah.
losing weight, getting physically fit, mentally stable, whatever it is, we have to have that goal in mind. And so mine was to have, a nice space to call my home.
Yeah. That's a beautiful dream, right? But
Yeah.
when you work towards it, I mean, it's incredible. One of the things that, when you said that your mom, even though she was a teacher, she could not afford to send you to college.
Yeah.
It really is such a shame that we can go to public school until 12th grade, but then it's like you're booted, and if you can't afford it, too bad, too
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
And I know that, a lot of officials and government want to change that, and I think it should be something that we should make higher education not something that people can't have.
Agree.
It shouldn't be based on your income, right? So let's say you have like your Yales and your Ivy League schools. Those I think could be made on your grades, not necessarily the amount of money you have,
Right.
right? So totally, I understand where your mom was coming from. And so glad for you that you had people in your life that pushed you and said to you, "We value you and we see the potential in you, and we don't want you to have doors shut because of that."
Right.
So let me ask you a question. During your college, during your
Mhm.
studies, did you also work?
Yes.
Uh-huh. So it wasn't just like, I'm going to college, I'm going to party, and just, it was like you were working for your degree and you were working for I guess, your money to stay alive, right? To live.
Yes, I had responsibilities. I had a
Mhm.
car, that wasn't it seemed like it was breaking down all the time. There was some expenses there. So, and I look back at those days in my early 20s, and I had full-time college schedule. I had a full-time social life, and I had a full-time job. Now,
Wow.
I don't know how I did that
You
because
fit 36 hours into 24.
oh, you
Congratulations.
know it. You know it. Some
Yes.
days I was like, looking back, which is funny because I mentioned to you I stayed up late last night. So we
Right.
had a celebratory party, and so you can hear it in my voice. I
Mhm.
did get sleep, but you can hear it. Um, I don't know how I did it. So I did all three. I made sure that I experienced the college life,
Mm.
but I also had this full-time job that I didn't let down, especially that one when I started I could only start the junior college because that's what I could afford.
Right.
And I couldn't let them down because they're the ones who encouraged me to go.
Mm.
So I had to show them my appreciation for them valuing me.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful. And the
But I
fact that
pulled
you
it off.
stayed in touch with them too, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
they came to your wedding. They
They
saw
did.
your success. right?
Yes.
Not only did they push you towards your success, but they saw it and you made them part of your life. I got to tell you, that's a beautiful, beautiful story. And unfortunately, not many people are lucky like you were to have the right people in your life to impact you in that way. We have so many young people nowadays who don't have people like that. I mean, think about, a kid living in the slums or where is gang infested and all these different things where they don't have someone speaking
Yeah.
into their ear and saying, we see potential in you. Meanwhile, the ones that see potential in them as gang leaders, right? They're like, we can use them to carry these guns or this drugs somewhere or do this or do that. And if you think about gangs, and I don't want to take it off subject, but they really have some infrastructure, don't they?
Oh, they do.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah. So I mentioned I grew up in Los Angeles, right?
Oh,
So
there you go.
we can just talk we can talk red and blue, and I'm just going to say I'm wearing red for Christmas. That's the only reason why I'm wearing the
Yes.
red scarf.
Beautiful.
But the reds and blues, I'm not even going to say the names of the gangs, but it was so intense. And
Mm,
to your point about them recruiting, and I talk about this a lot, and I just got the chills thinking about it.
mm,
They recruit those who don't feel a connection or have somebody who believes in them and says, you know what, you have a lot to offer.
right.
And it's just a few words, but nobody has ever said that to them. So
Mhm.
let's go back to my mom saying, honey, you can be anything you set your mind to. If there's a will, there's a way. And she used to tell me, if you want to be the first female president, you can. Now, I don't want that job ever. I'm just going to tell you, I'm not going to take that. But they don't have anyone who believes in them and who encourages them and actually holds them accountable to making some different decisions. And so then these gang recruiters come in, and then they
Mhm.
have somebody who they feel this connection with and this sense of love from, although there's a lot of hatred in the gangs, right? And so
Mhm.
it's heartbreaking to me that continues. And I have this horrible feeling it's getting worse and worse right
It
now.
is. It is. It is. When you think about they prey on the people who don't feel like they belong, there's nothing else to do. I might as well, right? So,
They're lonely, they feel disconnect, and here's somebody
mhm.
who they like me. They want me to be included in their
Yes.
event or what have you. It's heartbreaking.
It totally is. And I see that in your title there, you put connection strategist because it's the connections that we make, right? It's the
Yes.
people that we have. And you know that because it was the people who you went to work with, and there was those connections that changed the trajectory of your life, right? Because if they didn't speak
100%.
into you, where would you be today?
I probably would have had that full-time job, just
Mm,
plugging away 8 to
mm,
5, Monday through Friday.
yeah,
And not that that's a bad thing.
not at all.
I I just even way back when I would I thought it was really strange that good morning, how was your weekend every Monday morning? And
Mm,
then every Friday at 5, have a great weekend. And I thought this is so crazy that you come here 5 days in a row, you get 2 days off. It's the same hamster wheel. And for me, when I started realizing that was challenging for me. Like we'd park in the same parking spot, we'd meet the same people in the
mhm.
coffee cart area. And I knew somewhere deep down inside that wasn't for me to have that routine every single day, month after month, year after year. So when I started my own business in 2005, it was really for the flexibility and the ability to create my own schedule and work whenever I wanted. So
Ah,
that was the key to me. But so where would I be? It's really hard to say because you
of
as
course.
our life, in decade after decade, we take so many different paths. I'm not sure what I would be doing, where I would be. I don't even know if I would be in San Diego. I might still be in Los Angeles. But then when I say that, I think about the times that when I listen to myself, I desired living other places, going somewhere different, traveling and all that. So I don't know if I'd still be in LA. I don't know. It's hard to say.
But, when I talk about where would you be, obviously nobody can tell, right? Because
Yeah.
which path you take determines your outcome, right?
Yep.
Determines where you wind up, right? Because if a path is, if it's to the left or to the right, if you go to the right, that's where you're going to wind up on the right side. Or if you go to the left, you're going to wind up on the left side. Neither one of them is necessarily wrong. It's just the path you took. And
Right.
and there's riches on both ends. There really are. It's if you learn how to determine what those riches are. And I'm not talking about people who are exclusively super rich or exclusively super poor, because I've seen and met and talked to everyone who's been at both extremes. I've sat down with billionaires, I've sat down with people who are homeless, and they still have joy no matter what. But
Yeah.
it's what you make of it on a daily basis. So, Jeannie, you decided to open up your own business. And a lot of people make the mistake thinking that they're going to go their own business because they don't want to work for the man or the woman, right?
Yeah.
And in reality, they don't realize what they're really doing is because when you work your own business, you now have every hat on, right? So a lot of people go blindly into that. They don't realize that, oh, wow, I need to now know advertising. I need to know how to do sales. I need to know how to answer the phone properly. I need how to do all these different things. And so a lot of people don't necessarily find that. And even people who are in the business and they work for someone else, unless they've seen how every little aspect of that business works and they try to replicate it without implementing all of those things, they're going to be at a loss, aren't they?
It's very challenging. And a lot of people ask me, like, why did you go out on your own? How can you sustain this? For January is going to be 18 years. And
Congratulations.
thank you. And I tell them it's not easy. I mean, the very first reality check for me was when I didn't get that direct deposit every other Friday. So all of a
Yes.
sudden I'm like, what happened to my bank account? I didn't get that X amount in there that I was accustomed to. And so that was like, okay, you got to get over that. You have to work to invoice, right? In order to get paid. You don't just go to work and do your job. So and then you like you said, you have to be the advertiser, you have to be the sales and marketing, you have to be the finance. And you have to be IT. So you
Mhm.
learn, and it's exhausting. It can be exhausting. And one thing that I tell people now, early on, you should decide what your zone of genius is, and you do that.
Mhm.
And if so there's things in my business that I like to do, and I
Right.
wonder why I like to do them, because it's not really where I should be spending my time, but they're
Mm.
kind of fun tasks for me. And
Right.
I don't know if there's a lot of listeners who feel the same way. I love to check things off boxes, because I check the boxes off because I feel this sense of achievement.
Mhm.
So, and some of the projects that I have could go on for years with an executive, and you don't necessarily always feel that sense of achievement. So I sometimes go back and do some of these task things, because it gives me this, like, it's crazy fun for me. Like the website, like I like to go in there and check it out, even though I shouldn't be, because sometimes I make more damage to it. So I tell people at the beginning, figure out really what value you can add to your ideal
Mhm.
customer. You do that. Everything else you should start outsourcing right away. Just
Right.
start
Right.
outsourcing it. Now, it's really difficult here and now,
Mhm.
2022 to find people at a reasonable price who want to get the job done and do it right. So it can be challenging. And I've
Mhm.
talked to a lot of, actually this week, at least 2 or 3 different business owners who said, I'm so frustrated with this outsourced task I gave to somebody, and I feel like they're just using me, wasting my time. They want more money, and I might as
Mm.
well just do it myself. So then a lot of us business owners are circling back and doing this ourselves, but it's not easy. And so, to your point of being all those things in a business, yes, people should definitely consider that before going out on your own. And I know a lot of people who left work world, the corporate world in 2020, 2021, 2022 to
Mhm.
start their own business. And my prediction is that in a year and a half from now, so we'll be in 2024, most of those people will be returning to the workspace, corporate work, having a W-2 job, because it's not as easy as they think it is.
Yeah, yeah. Not I totally agree with you. I think when I started working when I was 10 years old,
Oh
so
my
I know work
goodness.
ethic. I was cleaning a bingo hall, then I was selling shish kebabs, I was selling flags at the parades, I was doing
Oh my
whatever.
goodness.
And I learned how to deal with people, how to talk to people, even how to sell at 10 years old. I was selling people. I was at a Puerto Rican Day event, and I was selling Puerto Rican Day flags. And I would say, hey, somebody walking by, hey, you don't have a flag. You need a flag. And people are like, you're right. And, the man that hired me when I was 10 years old, he saw that potential, but then he also saw something else. He said, who's not going to buy a flag from a little kid? So
Yes.
he was a smart man. But hey, listen,
Yes.
at 10 years old, when I worked those days, I was getting either 80 or $100 a day. And it was like six hours. And for a little kid, that's tons of money.
That's
And
tons of money.
I've always understood that I can make money no matter where I go. And so I left the corporate world, wow, in 90 92. And I've been running my own business. I'm an entrepreneur, so I have several businesses. But for every one of them, you're right. There are certain things that it's that feeling that comes over you, that satisfaction of doing, wow, I enjoy it. And I know that I can have somebody do it. So sometimes it's letting go, right? And saying, you know, I can do it, but what if I hired Mary or hired John and had them, even if they're not good at it, maybe I have to teach it to them and teach it the way I want my business to run. But I give them free rein, let them make mistakes as long as they're not costing me too much money. And they're going to help build my business so that therefore, if I'm just doing it myself, I can only go this high. But
Yep.
if I get the help and I make sure that they're doing it the right way, I don't want to micromanage, because then I won't be, why hire them if I'm micromanaging? But if I can give them some free rein and they can do it and they're going to make mistakes and that's okay, I can be okay with that, then my business from going from here is going to skyrocket and it's going to double, triple. I mean, one of one of the people that worked for me said just this morning, you know, your business is amazing from what it was last year. And I'm
Nice.
like, yeah, I know. They're like, why are you not happy? I said, it's not that I'm not happy. It's not that I want more, but I want to impact more. So for me right now, I just hired somebody. They're starting January 2nd, and I talked to them last 2 days ago, and they're very excited to start. And then I said, I need to hire another person. And then so they're like, why are you going to hire another person? I said, so I don't have to do certain parts of this job that I do, because I want to give someone else a chance to grow, to become
Yes.
better. So for me, it's always like, how can I impact? How can I make a difference, not only in my life, but in the life of those people around me, in my clients' life, in my customers, in my community, right? So I know that one of the things that you do is you help coaches, well, coaches, or I should say people who are leaders, right? And you help them through the coaching that you do, which is leadership coaching, but you help them to understand so much more, right? To really work on their mindset. I think one of the biggest challenges that you probably face is helping someone achieve that mindset of more. Tell me your thoughts on that.
I will, but before I do, I
Yes.
love what you said about you may have to train new people. You allow them to make mistakes because that's how we learn.
Hmm.
And you give someone else a chance. That is huge. And that's looking back, like when I first was encouraged to continue my education, those people that I worked with didn't have to take the time to get applications for universities. They didn't have to take their time to help me. But what did it do? It made us feel like we're connected. They got to know me. We're connected. They're helping me out. It's that reward that's not, money doesn't give you that reward. And so
No.
I think that's, you're saying you want to impact more people. You want to give someone a chance, 100%. And I think for leaders and organizations, they need to realize that you don't just, this has happened so many times. They've hired someone. And I said, well, did you communicate your expectations? Well, no, they should know by now. If they
Yeah,
have
right.
this degree and this degree and this years of experience, they should know how to do it. No, they don't. And anybody, even at a VP level, a VP of sales is coming in. You need to share with them the expectations in the organization, what they can expect from you, and what you should
Mhm.
expect that you're going to expect from them. You have to communicate constantly.
Oh,
And that's the
yes.
thing, they just don't. And so that goes back to the training and making the mistakes. And if a leader functions as a coach, they literally communicate what the end result looks like, their vision of it.
Hmm.
And here's how I've done it in the past, but it doesn't necessarily mean we have to do it that way. So you encourage somebody to use their own brain and the reason why you hired them. So there's no micromanaging, you're empowering them to do their job. And then you poke holes in the process and just peer in and see how it's going. And before that mistake becomes so valuable that you can't recover from it. Because if you're not checking on them and their mistake costs the company so much money, then of course you can't afford to do that. So your
Right.
job as a coach leader is to determine where to intercept the problem before it gets completely out of hand.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, one of the things that, um, you know, a lot of people, when they first start, and you said it doesn't matter the level. Listen, if I want somebody to come and take over my job entirely, right? And
Mhm.
I said that to somebody. I said, "Oh, so you're trying to clone yourself?" They said, "It's impossible." I said, "You're right. You're unique." I said, "But they need to be able to come in and have the same, if anything, even do better than you did." That's the kind of cloning I want. I want somebody, all my employees know that I want them to do better than me. And a lot of times, no matter how many times I'll say it, they still come to me and ask me for, how do you want this done? I'm like, once it's done, show it to me. No, no, but you're not going to like it. I said, how do you know I'm not going to like it? You first have to do it. I believe in you. This is why I'm giving you free reign, right? I have to believe in you. If I don't believe in you, why are you here? Right? If you don't
Yeah.
believe in you, why are you here? I said, listen, we need to have this relationship where I want you to be exceptional. every day when you come in, don't think this is a job, because if it's a job to you, you won't grow. I said, if you think this is your career, this is a chance. If you want to take over the company, then you have to be exceptional. And I want you to be able to take over the company, because guess what? Or I want you to buy me out because I want to open up another place. I want to do this. I want to have multiples. But if you're not thinking that way, then how valuable are you to me? You're replaceable. Say, I want you to come in here and say, I'm not replaceable. I am the person that needs to be here. I am the person that my boss is going to look at when it comes time to promotions, when it comes time to bonuses, when it comes time to like, oh my God, why did you give me this gift? It's not even my birthday. Because you're exceptional. So when I do that with someone, they're a little bit taken back, because when they work for somebody else, they're not treated that way.
Right.
They're treated like a number, right? Like, go to HR, they're going to give you a number, and that's it, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
No, I love that. And that is the key to success right there.
Mm-hmm.
Take the time to connect with your staff. And the only way to build that connection is to ask them questions about themselves. Where do you want to be in a couple of years? What are you challenged with? What do you need from me? I tell my clients, have you asked them what they need from you? Well, why would I do that? I don't have time to help another person. That right there is one of the issues with some organizations, because they have that mentality that I hired them to do the job. They should know how to do it. I don't have the time to help bring them up to speed. But the reality is that's your job. That's what you should be doing. And like with you, you're saying, I want you to be able to replace me. And that right there, that mentality, so many people are, I'm just going to throw it out there, they appear to be very insecure because they don't tell the whole story. They only give the employee enough so that they don't take their job. And the reality, leaders, is you want to hire people who can take your job so you can also do more. And if you believe in people and you went through the correct hiring process to select these individuals, then let them shine by making sure that they're adding value, you're communicating your expectations, that they know what's expected of them and what they can expect from you. And I think that when you switch back and forth, I get a little like, whoa, I get a little takes me back a little bit.
Yeah.
I think that it's really important to let people shine and communicate. I can't say that enough, but ask questions about what the world, what they want, and not just at the first week of employment, but constantly. I want my clients to have one-on-one meetings with their employees on a regular basis. If you can do it once a week, fantastic. If you can do it once a week in 30 minutes, that's amazing. And I understand some people have a staff of 20, and that's almost like that's too much time. But when you allocate a specific amount of time each week for the individual, they actually save up their requests of you for their time, and they're super efficient. And so that's one little thing that I help my clients with, is like, if you're not having one-on-ones, I think then I have an open door policy. Yeah, but then they're coming and going all day long, and which is great, but you're getting distracted. And it's really hard. Like, this is a great example, because when you switch to full screen, I get like, wait, now I'm not talking to you. Where'd your face go? And I get, look what happens to the mind. Like, all of a sudden, I'm like, I lost my train of thought again. That's exactly what happens when people come into your office, and you might be writing a speech, or you might be designing a new product, or you're in the flow of creativity. You forgot to close your door. You have this open door policy, and here everybody's coming in. So that's one thing that, as a leader, know your boundaries, and it's okay to say, okay, but it's okay to create boundaries for yourself so you can get what you need to get done. The next step is making sure that those that you lead know what that is. Because there's so many times, well, why do I need to tell them? I'm the boss. Well, no, you do have to tell them, because now you're leaving them wondering. And this has been like my whole career, it's 3 decades in HR. I don't understand why you didn't tell them that. Why didn't, what was we? Well, because some people can't handle that much information. I bet you they can. I bet you they can. Because guess what? They're adults. They're educated adults. They're experienced adults. You hired them because you thought they were in the top 10%, top 20%. Of course they can handle it. And this is what happens. This is from inside HR. If you do not communicate what's going on, they create their own what's going on. And it is so much less productive, so much worse than what reality is. So, and I do know that there's times where you can't tell them tomorrow morning we're having a layoff. You just can't. But so there's certain things you can't communicate, but for the most part, you can communicate a lot of information, and you'll be surprised at what they bring to you. If you say, look, team of 30, we're in this situation. We didn't get the Christmas sales that we thought. The numbers aren't up. What do you think we can do? Like, go around and what do you think? What's your idea? Get everyone's input, and you'd be surprised at how, as a team, when you're connected, when those staff members feel that they're adding value and that you value them, you'd be surprised at what they'll do for you.
Oh, yeah. You know,
they need that gang connection, right? They need to feel like you want them there.
You got to wear your colors.
Wear your colors.
You know, I love that because, you know, sometimes when I've had staff meetings and people are just sitting there, I'll call on them like, what do you think? They're like, I'm like, no. If you're not at this meeting and you're not willing to participate, why are you here? If you're not going to participate, it's, you know, I do require you to be here.
Yeah.
And I'm paying you to be here.
Yeah.
I need you to be part of this team. I need you to participate. I need your opinion because your opinion matters. You may think differently. Well, you know, okay, great. I want you to even be contradictory, because sometimes when there's that friction, when there's that energy, you know, you're excited about something, things come up. New ideas come out of these thoughts that you have, but you don't want to share because you think that I don't want to hear them. And people say, well, you're going to do whatever you're going to do because you're the boss. I'm like, yeah, but you're right. I am going to do whatever I believe it's best for the company. But you may have an idea that I think is amazing, and I may not go exactly with the way you want it, but your idea is going to let me reflect on, great idea, what can we take from it so we can develop it more? And then let's open it to discussion. What do you think about that idea? What do you think? And so now it's an open discussion amongst however many people are in this meeting, or even if you have hundreds of employees, how about a suggestion box, right? So that we get an idea. And if people go, I don't want to do a suggestion, people are going to know. Nobody needs to see it. You can even have an anonymous email sent out or whatever. You know, you can have all these different things, but it is definitely, everybody opinions count. Even the person who cleans, you know, you may never know. They may be, that's how they got their foot in the door, but they may be a star you'd never imagined, right?
You know it. So I'm going to touch on meetings in a minute, but I also, there was sayings going around like, you need to treat the janitor like you do the CEO. And I already did that. So when I would see that message on the socials about, you know, I treat them the same, I'm like, I kind of always did, because I treat everyone with dignity and respect. And I truly believe that everybody adds value for being there, and they have brilliant ideas. And so let's talk back about the meetings. Don't have meetings for the sake of having a meeting. And if you're having a meeting simply because we're on a team, you should be going down that list as a leader and saying, why does she need to be on here? Why does he need to be on here? And so it's always about having the internal stakeholders in the right place at the right time. So if you're having a meeting and you don't have so-and-so involved, why? What impact does it have? And that really comes down to really thinking about the organization as a whole. And like what I like to do with my clients is come in and wipe it all out in my mind. So I'm fresh, I'm new. And I ask, like, this team supports this team. This person can't do this without this. So why are they not in this meeting? Well, they're not on that team. Well, why not? Why? So that's where I add the most value to CEOs or executive teams, is like being an outsider coming in and saying, I think you're missing something here. Or have you thought about this? And so back to the meetings. There's statistics like crazy about how much time is wasted in meetings, especially the last couple of years. Like, get all 50 people on a Zoom call, and then you have people just like, what are we even doing? So it's one thing if you're giving a presentation, the who, what, where, when, and how. Here's what they need to know. Have an opportunity for people to ask questions, have an opportunity for people to give their input and do something with the input. And what I what I heard from you is, it may trigger something for the owner, the project leader, whoever it is, that's going to cause them to think differently about something. So every single bit of input that somebody has does make a difference. Circle back with those people and thank them for their contribution. That's also missing in a lot of areas. Like they're part of the team, so they give their input, but do I really have to go? You really should. It doesn't take much time to thank somebody for their hard work, their contribution. Let them know. Use these words. You are so valuable to me in that project. Had you not been involved, or had you not raised your hand and spoke up, we wouldn't have caught that. It takes seconds. And what it does to that individual is you water them, they bloom, they're flower blossoms, right? And I think we don't do enough of that. We don't recognize people's hard work and contributions enough.
Right.
And I always, for decades, I've told people, it's not even a budget line item for you to say, thank you so much. We wouldn't be where we are without you. Now, it has to be sincere. And the only way for you to give that compliment is to know what they're doing. The only way to know what they're doing is to ask questions and be connected to them. It sounds easy for me, but again, I'm the outsider. I know how hard it is to manage people. I know how hard it is. Your expectations, they're not being met. You get frustrated. Then you block them out of you're like, I don't want to deal with it. Go away because I have too much on my plate today. I get that. And I get how hard it is to communicate to people. I totally understand that. So my recommendation is just to treat people with dignity and respect. You can bring up some of the hardest subjects, some of the hardest direct constructive criticism. But if you do it in a manner that is well received by the individual, they respect it.
They do.
Do you know, I had people thank me for the way that I fired them, So, and it's like, they get it. So if there's no surprise because you've communicated along the way that too many absences or you're making mistakes here, or whatever it is, there's no surprise. Then you don't have that surprise factor, and people don't necessarily freak out. They get it. They're adults. They're human. They get it. We weren't born yesterday. And so I think I know that's just, treat people like, that golden rule, how you want to be treated.
Yeah, absolutely.
Don't hold information, good, bad, or otherwise, because that information and communication is the difference in your organization. It's really going to make or break you.
Yeah. One of the things that I definitely observed when I was in the corporate world was when, besides owning my own businesses, we had a girl that was always late. And one time I just said to her, I said, you live 4 blocks away. You actually walk here. I was working in Manhattan, New York City. And she says, the funniest line ever. Great comeback. She goes, yeah, but I get all those don't walk signs. I said, oh my God, you're so funny. But then when they were going to consider firing her, it was the reason they didn't fire her is because I said to them, do you value the work she does? Yes. Does she put in the same amount of time as anyone else, even though she comes in late? Yes. So what's the problem? She's coming in late. But to her, she's doing her work. So I said, let's tone it back a little bit and figure out, so what? She's a valued employee. She brings you money. She's bringing money into the corporation. She's bringing money into this business. Why are we going to penalize her? Because, listen, she shows up 20 minutes late, 15 minutes late. Another time is half hour late. So what? But she stays late. She makes up her time. She never tries to leave early. She's doing her due diligence. Yes, so she's a late person. Maybe she was born late. We don't know. But why are you going to get rid of her? And now you're going to have to bring someone else in who's going to be on time, but they may not have the qualities that she has. So what are you doing here? And they're like, we never thought of it that way. I said, well, do you value her? Absolutely. She's great. So remember that, right? We
I
have to, I think, look at every employee. And you said, we have to have that connection. So it's that connection. The fact that I just asked her, why are you always late? And she gave me a great comeback. I couldn't help it but laugh.
yeah.
It was a great comeback.
Yeah, what I was going to say is, especially now when we have these newbies entering the work world, those who are just, they're in their 20s, they want to, if you were to ask them in the interview, what does your ideal day look like? Your ideal work schedule look like? And they may say, well, one day if I'm walking past, this coffee shop and I happen to see somebody, I want to stop in and have coffee with them because I haven't seen them in a while. So I want to be able to do that. But if I come in an hour later, I'm going to stay an hour later. I'm going to get my job done, to your point. So they actually, if you asked a lot of them now, they want that flexibility. And that's why a lot of people are going out on their own, because they think that they can do that, to have that flexibility on their own. And they can.
To a
But
point.
if you want to retain these folks, accommodate their needs, right? And there was always this attendance thing, like, oh, they're absent too much, they're late. I would ask the question, are they holding up a process, a team, a creation of something by being 20 minutes late and she was hitting the no walk sign? Is there something being not getting done because she's late? Then you focus on that, because maybe the company can say, we're not going to have it at the meeting at 8, we're going to have it at 10. Now, I don't believe the whole organization should change because somebody potentially was born late and is always late. You have to,
Right.
you have to look at you have to look at all the needs, including the individual, and determine what makes the most sense. So yes, if they're one of your top performers and they're adding value and you're really getting, you trust that they're getting that job done, then what difference does it make as to when they're showing up? And look at now, this day and age, everybody's working from all around the world.
Right.
And they took that opportunity in the last 2 years to, what, I don't need to live in New York City. I don't need to live in LA. I can go live in an island that has good internet and still get my job done. And that's the beauty. That is so, like, I remember back in 20, I guess you call the 20s, right? No, the 2000s.
Yeah,
What
yeah, yeah. 2000, right?
is it like? What do they call that? Because you call like the 80s, the 90s. What was 2000?
I guess that's it.
That's it. We always have this conversation every time it comes up.
Right.
So there was a lot of engineers who were starting to work remote, and there were full organizations being created across the globe with remote employees.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, HR needs to be, I need to be able to do that
Remote.
too.
Mm-hmm.
And they would say, well, you need to be here with the employees, FaceTime. They need to see you. Like, do they though? Because now look at 2022, look at, just Google HR jobs. They're all remote. They're all virtual. And you can be anywhere. So it's really the value you add, to your point. And organizations need to be more flexible with the needs of the individual. And they would be surprised how dedicated those staff are if you accommodate them. And it's not simply like a medical accommodation that we have through, California regulations or the federal government regulations. It's about what that individual needs.
Mm-hmm.
And you can never know unless you ask them.
That's right. That's right.
And I know a lot of leaders are afraid to ask. You know why? Because they're afraid they're going to get some answer that they can't
handle.
Support. But more than not, it is something pretty simple that people don't ask for too much. They don't. They really don't.
It was companies even before Zoom really came out, to be a top provider, I guess, for these type of meetings. I mean, like I used to use Zoom in the beginning. I still use Zoom, right? One of my businesses is a martial arts business, and I still teach classes to my individuals, but there's people who log on, and I have anywhere from 4-year-olds who log on and their parents are doing class with us. And I have people in their 50s and 60s log on and they're doing classes with us because maybe they're too far, or they just don't want to leave the house, or they're not feeling well that day, but they still want to get that workout in.
Yeah, that's great.
But when you think about the corporations that started, look, IT, customer service, who didn't complain about when you call customer service? It was an Indian company that answered the phone. And then, sometimes, and all these companies went there because they were getting people who knew, especially IT, who knew their stuff. They were engineers and they were paying them nothing to be able to provide the service, the customer service that people needed, the support, if you will. But now people are using, through the internet, people to do work for them. Like you got Fiverr, you got all these different companies. You have people who are working remotely, and they may work for 10 different companies because of what they provide, right? Yep. They might be an assistant to 10 different, leaders, different corporate heads, but they don't need them to be an assistant 8 hours. They need them to be an assistant for maybe an hour a day, right? So it really, technology has really changed the dynamic of business, right?
Absolutely. And to your point of the value add. So what value can you add to my organization? I only need you for an hour a day. And these virtual assistants have realized, well, if I get 10 people for an hour a day, now I have 10 bosses, right? But they have this amazing business. Absolutely flourishing. It's a good time. It's actually a good time to be in business. It's a good time to have employees. You just need to realize where we're at now. And I know I've heard so many, especially this month, I've heard so many, but the world of work is so different now. It's always different. Look at when our parents were working in the 50s and look at us now. Like it's always different. And we have to embrace change. If we're not embracing it, you're going to get mulled over.
Yeah.
It's time to just see what are we faced with right now. And I think the last 3 years really shared, like it really rubbed that in our face, like what you have to adapt.
You have
They
no choice.
they call it pivoting. They call it, you just need to be able to adjust. And there's a lot of corporations who, I don't hear it so much right now because we always did it that way. But I know you and we've been in organizations where we tried to challenge things, try to challenge the process or the system because it didn't seem quite efficient as it could be. And they'd say, it's worked. We've done it this way for years. Just keep doing it that way. You're like, I don't know. It doesn't seem to be so efficient. So I encourage people to listen to those who see that it's not as efficient as it could be, because you really should be looking at those processes and improving them constantly.
I mean, daily. Sometimes it's even daily. I mean, look at technology, how fast it's changed. And if it wasn't looked into on a daily basis, would it be as fast as it is? Look,
No.
technology has really changed. One of the things that, I love this conversation, by the way. I'm having a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank
But I also
you.
want to talk about your books. You've written 2 books.
Yeah.
What possessed you to
So,
write a book, even the first one?
both books I am a co-author in. So
Right.
I was asked to be, the one is called Own the Microphone. And
Mm,
it was about people who want to speak in front of large audiences and share their knowledge and have an impact, to your point earlier, on a bigger, greater group. And
mhm,
so what does it mean to be a good speaker? And I've always thought to show up as yourself, be authentic. Before the word authenticity was like overused,
mhm,
it was, to me, if you want to be an actor or actress, you should go to Hollywood and go behind the camera. If you want to really share who you are and make an impact and help someone else because of what you've been through and you learned how to overcome something, you need to be yourself. Don't go up on stage and just read a script that you have. People will see right through that. And so there's this woman I know who, she had a whole script ready for her keynote, and she just threw it aside and started answering questions. And
mhm.
that is her being 100% authentic and saying, this doesn't feel right. What do you want to know, guys? What do you want to know from me? Ask a question and I'll answer it. Kind of like these type of interviews that we have now is, and that was amazing. So anyway, that book is about just showing up authentically, speaking your truth, being who you are. Don't try to be something you're not or compare yourself to other people. Be you, because you have such amazing gifts to share. So
Right.
that's my chapter in that one. The second one is called Success Codes, and it is secrets to success we weren't taught in school.
Mm,
And so my chapter is on very, very similar about, there were 5 areas. And maybe I'll just pull it up real quick since you asked about it.
of course.
Um,
I see you have little markings in that book. That's great. I
I
love it.
do. I write I have
I
stuff
do the
everywhere.
same.
So in leadership, a lot of people, there's a lot of characteristics of good leaders, right?
Mhm,
But I feel that there are 5 areas that if a leader is really strong in these 5 areas, they will stand out as a strong leader. And the first one
mhm.
we already mentioned is change. You have to be able to accept it, embrace it, and help others through that process. That is so important. Um,
Absolutely.
trust. Trust was my second topic in this chapter, and trust, building a culture of trust is really the key to a successful business. If people don't trust their direct supervisor or manager, that's the reason they leave.
Mhm.
And they have to feel like you trust them. And so you can't micromanage. You can't ask them a million questions constantly about, are you sure you're doing it right? Well, you're not doing it my way, because you're not trusting that they know what they're doing. They're
Mhm.
not feeling like they belong there if you don't trust them to get their job done. And it takes time to get to know people. It can't happen overnight. And if you really want to retain people long term, you have to continually spend quality time getting to know them on a regular basis, because things change.
Right.
And when you know your staff, you can say, Jeannie, do you have a minute? You don't seem like yourself. Is everything okay?
Mm. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't do that. They're like, I don't know, they seemed off. But you really, you want to have that relationship where you see that something's going on. And, HR people would say, well, you don't need to know what's going on in their personal life. Agree. I don't need to know all the details. I just need to know, are you okay? Is there anything I can do or the organization can do to help you through this process? Do you
Yeah.
need a day off? Do you need a week off? What do you need from me? That's
Yeah.
what leaders should be asking. So the second one is trust communication. We've talked about that. I
Right.
can talk for days about
We can both. Yes.
communication and how lack of is
Mm.
so detrimental. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Mhm.
Ask empowering questions and sit back and listen. Truly listen.
Yeah.
It is a skill that not everybody has, and it takes time to build. If you are living 100% present in the moment, all you can do is listen. And if you're really listening to not only what's being said, but what's not being said, now you're getting deeper with the individual, right?
Of
We've
course.
already talked about sharing what's happening with the organization, because then they can give their valuable input that may make or break where the organization's going. So it's okay to say, we didn't make a revenue goal. We didn't, but what should we do? Let's come together as a team. People want to feel like they're part of a team. Back to the whole gang thing.
Mhm.
We should be creating gangs within these organizations.
Yes.
Um, It's kind of the same thing, the tribe, the
Right.
culture, it's all the
Mhm.
same thing.
Right.
And it really that's why I put connection strategist in my title now, because it comes down to that. How do I feel like I belong? Do I feel like
Mm.
I'm heard, right? Do I
Right.
feel like my concerns are addressed? Otherwise, there's a huge disconnect. So
Totally.
the last 2 in this chapter of this book is being resilient and emotional intelligence. And that we could talk about that till the
Ooh,
days
for
come.
days. Oh, yeah.
We do training at Dynamism Leadership. We have training on all of these topics, leading as a coach, creating a culture of trust, emotional intelligence. I have a whole course on that can be customized to any client, whatever their needs are. We could do a 1-hour seminar. We could do a whole day,
Love it.
depending on what the organization's needs are. So
Yeah.
I usually come in, figure out quickly, do an assessment, figure out where I think things could use some improvement. And then we co-create different programs for the
Perfect.
organizations.
That's awesome. And everybody, they can get your books on your website, right?
Yes. There's a link to Amazon to
Mm.
the books on the website.
And I just put the website on the screen also. Would you
Okay.
mind saying it and then just break it down
Sure.
as far as
Sure.
spelling it so everybody who's listening on the audio part can get it? Because I want
Perfect.
people to go because, listen, even before you do that, everything that we've been speaking about, obviously you're very well versed on every subject that we talked about. One of the other things that I noticed also on your bio for podcasters, you give them an outline of questions that you suggest they ask. Obviously, I didn't because I'm in the moment. I'm here with you, right? And
Love
I
it.
think our conversation was really unique because I'm just a very curious person, right?
Same.
But it goes to show how you're leading those people who don't maybe have done this for a while, who understand how to talk to another person, to pull some of the information that most people want to hear. So for you to give advice, even there, you're helping people become better. So thank you for doing that. And
Oh,
yes, I
thank
saw a
you.
bunch of questions that you had there that people can ask you. And I think that I asked you maybe some, maybe not.
Yeah,
Um, but then I think we went a lot deeper. And I thank you for definitely going there with me. So go ahead and
absolutely.
tell us about your website.
My pleasure. So the website is Dynamism Leadership. It's Dynamism Leadership, LEADERSHIP.com. On the website, you can find a link to a 15-minute complimentary call, exploratory call with me to see if if I could be of assistance to you in any way with your personal one-on-one leadership challenges you have, or with your business. I've worked with executive teams, I've worked with sales teams, marketing teams, you name it. So engineering teams, teams in leadership development, human resource consulting. I've come in and set up your entire HR function, or I
Mm,
can help your HR leader with whatever they're challenged with. We do speaking engagements. So if you had a keynote at your organization, you wanted to talk about a culture of trust, for example, then that's something that we could create for you, and I could come and speak at your event. And
nice.
then, so training and development, executive coaching, and speaking engagements.
Love it. Love it. I definitely want you to come to our, we're going to have all the coaches who've ever been on my shows are going to come to New York, and we're going to do a big event,
Oh,
and
how
definitely
fun.
would love to have you be part of it. You know, one of the things that we always sometimes miss in business is the communication amongst every level of every employee. And sometimes, it's almost like you're a mother hen or a father, uh, let's say a father figure, where we're trying to just kind of lead, but we're kind of leading a little blindly because we're not having our staff communicate with each other, right? So I think creating that unity amongst each other. I've had situations where I had two people who did not like each other at all.
Mm-hmm.
And there was this animosity and this going at each other. And I just said, hey, both of you, we need to talk. We need to figure this out. We need to iron it out. And then you need to figure out if this is going to be costing you your job or if you want to stay here. We have to listen, you don't have to like each other, but you
I
have to
use the
work
same
well
word.
together, right? You have to
Yeah.
be, listen, we're in it together. So no
Yep.
matter what, if we were in a sinking ship and you needed each other to live, would you work together? Because without one, the other one dies. What would you do? And they're like, oh, okay, when you put it that way. So yeah, it's your chance to thrive or drown, you know. I heard a statement the other day. It actually might have been this morning, is, you know, you don't swim and you don't sink unless you get in the water, right?
Right. You
I
have to
loved
be.
it. I thought that was great.
I love that too. That's the first time I've heard it like that. I've
Mm,
heard you can't win unless you're in the game. I mean, you
right.
have to at least like try, like the lottery.
Yeah.
You can't win the lottery unless you sign up for the lottery. Like
Right.
you have to. Um, you what you were saying about the two people getting along. So back in my, when I was employee relations,
Right.
HR, which still happens a lot of times, even
Hmm.
as a consultant. But when I was internal, whenever there'd be friction, they would send them to me.
Hmm.
So I remember same thing. Look, you add value. This is what you do for the organization. This is what you do for the organization. You two seem to not get along. So the three of us sat in a room. I said the same thing. You don't have to love each other. You don't even have to like each other. But guess
Hmm.
what? My expectations are, when you're in this building, This is how you're going to function. But I love, like, so you almost said the same exact words as me. We've been doing the same thing with people. Hash it out.
Mhm.
And when they had an opportunity to talk, and it's uncomfortable because
Oh,
people
yeah.
don't want to say, you know what, Jeannie, when every morning when you do that, it makes me feel like this. They don't want to, but they need a space to do that in.
Mhm.
When you provide them that and they finally can share their feelings with the other person, 9 out of 10 times it's a misunderstanding.
Right.
And they just keep festering on that. So I
Yes.
love that you've actually gone in there and had to facilitate conversation between two people that didn't get along. I've had to do that so many times.
Yeah.
They just need the space to talk about it, and they need to feel comfortable enough to, like, share their feelings. And it's really hard for people to share their feelings.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Absolutely.
so hard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because they look back, like back to how we started this conversation. You asked me about me at 6 or 7 years old. The same thing happened to these people. When they would share their feelings, it would either it was addressed in a manner where they started just holding it in. They stopped sharing
Mhm.
because of the response they got from someone.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Jeannie, wow. Love this conversation. I love our connection. Thank you so much for being here today. Really appreciate you. Do me a favor, we're going to end, but stay on for a minute. I want to just chat with you if you
Sure,
don't mind.
sure. Absolutely. Thanks for
What,
having me.
oh my gosh, what a great time I had. So, what's one advice that you would tell someone that they can take today in order to improve their outlook on their business? Because whether you work for, I always say, whether you work for someone or not, you're still the president of your company, right? Or
I
CEO.
always I always say, yep, we're the CEO of our own life. We are all leaders, because I have people go, "Oh, you're a leadership coach?" I really need a coach, but I don't lead people. You lead your own life. And guess what? You lead the life of your friends, you lead the life of your kids' coach, or whatever. We're all leaders. You're the CEO of your own life. My biggest piece of advice, and I think the biggest moment in life change for me, was when I determined my core values.
Mm,
And I really was able to pinpoint, here's the top 3. Why are these things important to me? And what happens when they're compromised or supported?
right.
And it was life changing for me, because it actually made me realize, oh, that's why I get ticked, or what ticks me off and what makes me tick is because of
Mhm.
my core values and who I am. So my number one advice: connect with yourself. Learn who you are at the core. That's when you can start being a leader and a strong leader to other people, until you know who you are. And then share who you are with others.
Mm,
Don't be afraid to share that.
right.
And
Yeah.
so, that was hard for me, because I always wanted to be strong and show this strong. And guess what? We're human.
Yeah.
So I started sharing that, the last 3 years were really challenging for me.
Mm,
Really challenging. I have lost so many loved ones, so many
mm.
family members. And then the last was, I lost my dog last month.
Oh my
And
gosh.
she
Sorry.
was my constant through all I lost my sister. Like
Mm,
family members, dear friends, combination of aging out, COVID, and
right.
cancer.
Mm,
And it was a hard time for me, but I was still showing
mm,
my strong self to people, my sizzle reel. Like, it's so
right.
great. But you know what? Inside, and this is what's really important, and I'm sharing this right now because it just is percolating.
Of course.
We need to check on our strong friends, because those strong friends hide when they're weak.
Yes.
And I've never said it like that ever until just now, and I just got the chills, but
Mm,
it's been a hard couple of years for me, and I am determined to go into 2023 with, like, you know what? I embrace my feelings more than I ever have. I understand now for the first time in my life what depression feels like, and I feel like the universe had me go in some of these directions so that I can relate to more people, so that I can have a bigger impact on more people, because I get it.
Yeah.
Depression, grief, anxiety,
Mm.
sadness, hardcore. Those
It
are
is very.
hardcore feelings.
Mm-hmm.
If any of the listeners had any of one of those four, it's challenging. If you're experiencing what I did over the last couple of years with all four of those things, grief is, I never even knew. I mean, I
Mm.
lost my father decades ago to a drunk driver, and that was hard.
Mm.
But so many deaths in a 3-year period, grief is just compounding. And I 100% believe in therapy, group coaching, connect with people who are going through what you're going through. And I
Yeah.
used to say, you know what, Jeannie, put her big girl panties on. You can handle this. You know what? You can't. You
No, it's
can't do this
tough.
alone. You need connection with other people. I signed myself up for every grief group coaching program that would take me. And I went and I
Good
hung
for
out with
you.
them. And you
Yeah,
know
no,
what?
good for you.
It's healing me. It's healing my heart. It's healing my mind. And I'm all about sharing that. You know what? We're all human. Life is a challenge.
It is.
So I know that was a long-winded answer.
No,
I
Jeannie, I got to tell you, you're a beautiful soul, and I can see it. You come with your heart, and I love that. And you're speaking volumes right now, because there's been a couple of people who did take their own lives. One of them I knew personally, not too long ago, and he was a celebrity. And it 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 is so hard when you look at somebody, and you said it, go talk to the strong people because they hide it the best. When you looked at this person, super energetic, super supportive of other people, would do anything for anyone,
Mm,
would make and cheer people up. And there was this darkness inside of him that made him take his own life, which is
yeah.
so sad,
So
because there are help groups out there that we should all be able to go to. When you're in your darkest moment, you need to remember that even in the dark room, a door can be open and light can come in.
yes.
So look for that. There are people, listen, you may be in a scenario where there's people who are like tramping down on you and hurting you. Find another room, find another place. There are people there with lots of love who are there to help and support. So please,
Yeah.
before you even do the ultimate, which is the wrong thing to do, is to take your life. No matter how hard things get, you are an amazing. And I said, you said before how people are being judged, and but I like the word unique, because that makes you, there's no one like you,
Right.
and you are totally unique, and you need to be here with us. That's anyone who's listening.
I agree.
Definitely find the groups. They're out there. Look for an outreach. Talk to a friend. And guess what? It's okay if you mess up. A lot of us, we entrap ourselves because of the shame and the guilt. And that doesn't have to be that way.
Right. Agreed.
If you feel ashamed of talking to a particular person, talk to someone else. Talk to a stranger who doesn't even know you, because they can't judge you, right?
I think that what was helpful with like a group coaching or group counseling is you walk in and they don't know you, and you can just be true and honest with yourself and share the truth. One thing that I did, I'll be real quick, is I started feeling like I was there for everyone. But when I felt lonely and sad and I reached out, where are they? Where they're not answering my phone calls, they're not showing up, right? And I felt really lonely for the first time in my life, like super dark and lonely. So then I decided, I went through my phone and I saw like all the times that I was with really good quality friends of mine. And I decided to email those pictures to myself and then have them printed. I went to CVS, has a 1 hour.
Right.
When I was printing the pictures, I was doing it on purpose because where I sit right now, there's a wall right here, and I have framed times when I'm with my friends who I feel like really love me. They invited me to this
Nice.
event. We went on this trip together. And then when I
Mm.
was printing the pictures to frame for my little friend wall, and it sounds silly. I mean, I'm a grown woman, a professional. I run a
I
business.
think that's
I was
beautiful. That's
feeling
cool.
lonely. So
Yeah.
I created this little friend wall collage, but I also printed pictures for them and I put them in a frame and I gave it to them for this Christmas.
Mm.
My friends are like, this is the cutest, funnest, best gift. I love it
Yeah.
because it takes us back to that time that we went axe throwing together, that we
Yeah.
went on that trip to Costa Rica together. And I encourage people, like, if you don't know how to set up something like that, that makes you, and I didn't know where this came from. It just, I was driven to like, I want it front and center with me. Actually, I do know where it came from. When my mom passed away, somebody bought me a frame that goes outside in the garden to put my mom's picture in. And
Oh,
it
wow,
says,
that's
not a
cool.
day goes by that I don't think of you. So every morning, because I can see it from my kitchen window, good morning, Mom, love and miss you. And I cheers her with my coffee. And I have decided to embrace the love that I had with everyone I lost and not the loss.
Yeah.
So the reason we feel so sad about losing people is because they're no longer there, but they are there. They're here.
Yes.
You just remember all the love. And I know you and I think could talk for like 3 days straight. We could
I
probably
think
talk.
3 weeks. It's and I just want to share that my brother passed when he was 42, way too young. So when I walk out of my bathroom, which I have to go every day, his picture's right there.
Oh, just like my mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and every day I see my brother. And one of the things is like he went too way too young. My mom passed in March of 2020, and it was a day before her birthday. So I got a chance to spend a week with her, which was a beautiful week. My
Yes.
dad passed a year before, and it's always incredible when every night I say my gratitudes and they're included in it.
Mhm.
Every
Yeah.
single night, they're part of my gratitudes every night. So when you remember those people, you're right. And there is a grieving, right, that we have to go through. But for me, it's always that remembrance. I don't remember the negativity. I only
No.
remember how funny they were.
Yes.
And my brother was hysterical. So I always think about the funny things he used to do
I
or
love that.
say. And man,
I
that's
think
beautiful.
I think you just hit on something. A lot of people suffer with grief and guilt, and they're
Mm,
focused on the negative things. I have a sibling, and I'm like, I don't remember that, or I choose not to remember. I don't even, were we in the same household? Because I don't remember that ever happening, because
mm,
I choose to embrace the positive because that person was doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. And I truly 100% believe that.
mhm.
So absolutely. I love that you do that and how funny your brother is. And I'm glad you got to, I spent the last week with my mom, her last week on earth with her. I was right by her
Nice.
side the whole time. So we have that connection too.
We do. And my mom was a teacher, just like yours.
Oh, oh,
Yeah.
wow. What
We are
was her
so
name?
connected, you and I.
What was your mom's name?
Rosa.
Grossa. Okay. My
Yeah,
mom's name was Shirley. So
there
I
you
was like,
go.
oh, good. Don't tell me they have the same name. No.
That'd be funny. Well,
Such a great conversation. I could
yes.
talk to you forever, and we can talk anytime you want.
Yes, let's do it. Let's stay
Okay,
connected for sure because
great.
you're the most connected person I know. Thank you so much for today. It was a great pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank
And
you.
everybody, have an amazing, amazing rest of your day. Bye-bye,
Cheers.
everybody.